Michael Mol is 'n naam wat vir ons almal bekend is. Hy was meneer Suid-Afrika, is 'n radio- en TV-persoonlikheid en het ook sy eie TV-program en is regisseur van Hello Doctor. Ek het vandag die voorreg om met hom te gesels.
I'm Michael Mol and I am a friend of God.
Die Park Inn Radisson Hotel is geleë in die hartjie van Newlands in Kaapstad. Die hotel beskik oor 122 luukse kamers, sowel as 5 konferensielokale met topklas audiovisuele toerusting. Met maklike toegang na en van die hoofroetes, is die Park Inn Hotel die ideale venue vir jou om met die familie weg te breek of om daardie volgende vergadering of dinkskram saam met 'n paar kollegas te hou. So vir jou volgende kuier in Kaapstad, maak seker die Park Inn Hotel is op jou kortlys. Michael Mol, baie welkom by Vriend van God. Kan ek begin deur te sê, hallo dokter.
Ja, dankie Pieter. Wonderlik om hier te wees.
Het is baie lekker om jou saam met ons hier te hê. Vertel my 'n bietjie van jou kinderdae. Waar het jy groot geword?
Pieter, my childhood, man, a rough childhood in the leafy green suburbs of Pretoria, overprotected and loved by my parents. But maybe a little story for you, kind of rolling back a couple of years, which started in I suppose in a concentration camp, Second World War. There was a guy called Clem Gates, who had a friend, a Scot, who was a believer and a man who loved God, and Clem wasn't. And they found themselves in a situation where they were forced to volunteer to do some dangerous work. Clem's number got called, and his friend said to him, "Let me take this position because, I'm ready to die, you're not." Long story short, this guy actually died in Clem's place, and Clem was so taken by the fact that this friend gave up his life for him that when he got out of the concentration camp, eventually became a pastor, and many years down the line, Clem led my dad to the Lord, picked him out of a gutter, said this kid needs God, and so I get to grow up in a home many years later because of one man, a whole bunch of generations ago, who gave his life for a friend. And for me, that's really when my childhood sort of started, was way back when, before I was even born, God's hand was on our lives as a family and as a son, and for me that just kind of speaks of God's grace from start to finish.
Ja, dis 'n fantastiese storie.
Excuse, it's a long antwoord. I'll try and shorten it.
Dis reg. Vertel my bietjie, is daar enige waarde wat jy graag in jou kinders se lewe wil inbou?
Ja, dit verskil so 'n bietjie van my pa se idees. He always said he wants his children to leave home one day met 'n goeie selfbeeld en 'n verhouding met die Here. And I like that idea, that my children have a great self-image and they have a relationship with God, wonderful. But for me, I think a value I'd like to instill in my kids is this value of grace. I think so often we forget the grace that's been lavished on us. We feel entitled, we feel like we are deserving of things, and the truth is we're not. We're really not worthy in that sense. And the more we realize that, the more we come face to face with grace, the more gracious we are to others. And we've got a family of 3 kids. You can imagine how busy and noisy and how fights kind of happen. And there's part of me that just says, guys, I just wish you'd be more gracious to one another. But to say that doesn't make any difference. It's understanding what grace is and how much grace I've been given. Those are the individuals that then share grace with one another. So if there's one value for me, grace.
Ek het 'n dogtertjie wat 8 jaar oud is. En sy sê altyd sy wil 'n dokter word.
Wonderlik.
Nou, is dit iets wat dieselfde was in jou lewe? Is dit iets van jongs af vir jou 'n waarde was?
To be fair to my brother, his whole life he wanted to be a doctor. I was between an engineer and a marketing person, and probably just before the end of school decided medicine is for me. And when I reevaluated that many years later as a doctor, kind of figuring, why did I do this? Not because I was questioning why, because I didn't want to do it, but what was the deeper reason? And I think it had to do with the sense of being able to make a difference in somebody's life. And I know that's a broad cliche and everybody wants to make a difference, but there was a real drive within me that said, if I can make someone breathe a little bit easier today, then that's good for me. That satisfies my need for the sense of purpose and significance. And I suppose in the medical field, although I'm not pressing the flesh anymore and seeing patients one-on-one, I'm still getting to live out that desire to make a big impact and make a difference to many people around the world today, which is great.
Jy het ook 'n passie vir radio en TV en jy het oor die jare groot sukses ook behaal. Is dit iets wat net gebeur het?
Ja, dit uiteindelik. Ek het I was my final year of med school when I entered this this competition just for a pair of sunglasses. I mean, it was a silly thing I did, and long story short, it was this Mr. SA thing, and then top billing, and all of a sudden I find myself in front of a TV camera, panicking because I don't know what to do in front of these camera lights action. You know, give me a heart attack, because that's what I've been trained to deal with, and I can handle that. But the TV thing just, it was never an intention to get into media, but found myself in that role and in that position with a platform, as you well know, Peter. You have a platform and the kind of, not the burden, but the responsibility that comes with, so what am I going to say on the platform that I've been given? So to come back to your question, I've got a passion for TV and media. I think my passion is more for the people that consume media. So, in our era, or way back when, it was TV and media. Now it's web, it's online, it's digital, it's podcasting, vodcasting, it's all those things. So it's not so much the medium that I'm passionate about, but it's the message that we get to bring across to many people. And for me, that's powerful. So, I think if you'd ask me what I'm passionate about, it's the whole idea of allowing people to discover the God-given purpose, to realize this amazing potential within them. And if we can do that through TV or radio or whatever medium, then great. Much like you guys are doing now.
Dink jy passie lei tot sukses?
I think it's an ingredient. I don't think it's the ingredient for success. I mean, you can be passionate about things that don't lead to success, or that are not focused on success. I think probably the biggest key in my life, and I suppose many people's lives, to long-lasting success is this whole idea of discovering what your strengths are. We were wired in a particular way. I mean, we've been created by God to do good works. I mean, there's a lovely verse that describes that. But for me, it goes deeper than just that. It's our DNA, the way we were wired. We were created to do certain things, and certain things brilliantly and well. If I can figure out what that is, if you can figure out what that is and play to that, you start to realize this amazing potential within you. Start to realize your natural giftings and abilities. And if you take that, and that intersects with a need, then you found your sweet spot. And for me, that is success. And success, people define it differently in so many ways. From my perspective, success is not as important as significance. And I think, you'd know what I'd be talking about there, Pete, in the sense of success is all about me and what I've achieved. Significance is what we can do for those around us and the impact that we have on the greater community. And for me, that's a far higher calling than just success or personal success.
Wat is daar in lewe wat jou motiveer en jou inspireer?
What gets me up in the morning is really what you're asking.
That's the thing.
Okay. I'm trying to think of the little mantra. I wrote it down quite a while ago. What gets me up in the morning is the opportunity to challenge the status quo, to take innovative ideas and put them into action, to take something good, turn it into great, and make a real difference in my community and the world around me. That's what kind of drives me. So, and what that really is, Pity, it's a carefully crafted, I suppose, mantra, but it comes out of the strengths that are inherent in my life and what God has given to me, and that's what floats my boat. Some people might be listening and kind of going, that's a bit boring, but other people who share similar strengths profiles will kind of go, yeah, great. So that's the beauty of figuring out what those strengths are and playing to them.
Wat is een van die grootste lewenslesse wat jy al geleer het?
It probably summed up best by the purpose-driven life. I think the first time I picked up that book, chapter 1, there it was, man. That whole idea of it's not about me. And what a great lesson to learn in terms of, particularly in the field that we find ourselves in the public eye, in media, where it is all about you. The truth is it isn't. And it's a lesson I've continued to learn and had to learn again and again. But what a great lesson. It comes again hand in hand with grace and understanding that where I am today had very little to do with my input. The family I was born into, the opportunities I was given, the favor that was poured into my life for whatever reason, it's a God-given position rather than something I fought and earned and worked for. I'd never equate how hard I work with someone else who works as hard, who's just not recognized at all. I think of the lady that works in our home. Same thing, she works far harder than I do, but hasn't quite been given those opportunities. Her circumstance is different. So, long answer, but really to come back to that original lesson, it's not about me, it's what God is doing. It's being part of what God is doing and joining Him in that, as opposed to, what is it I've got to do, and what is the purpose of my life in that sense.
Is erkenning belangrik, want wanneer 'n mens skouers skuur met 'n klomp belangrike mense en jy's ook 'n bietjie in die kollig, dan is daar tog erkenning wat daarmee saamgaan. Hoe belangrik is erkenning vir jou?
Dit is belangrik vir my persoonlik, maar ek dink dis nie die erkenning wat belangrik is nie, dis die rede vir daai erkenning. So it's the reason I'm getting recognition. A famous entrepreneur years ago, a lady called Mary Kay Ash, said the two things people want more than sex and money, they want praise and recognition, which is fascinating. Not a great thing to quote, I suppose, but for me, just being recognized was empty. So for many years, people would stop me and kind of go, wow, you've got the greatest job in the world. I mean, I love what you do, and I'm so envious, and I'm so jealous, and you did this and that, and the people you meet, and that was just straight recognition. Yeah. And for me, it was, what am I being recognized for? Just for being on TV, a Kardashian, or am I doing something? And at that point is when I stepped down from what I was doing to say, listen, let me take what God has given me and give back, and rather do something that has probably, in my opinion, a little more meaning. And that's when we started the medical show and the Hello Doctor stuff and the Dr. Mol show. And it's amazing, the recognition changed from just people saying, man, best job in the world. Now people would stop me going, I quit smoking.
Wow.
Or Dr. Mol, I lost 3 kilograms. I did what you said, and look at me, I'm 3 kilograms lighter. Whatever that. And for me, that recognition was the realization of, it's not about being recognized, it's about what are you being recognized for, which was key.
Jy's 'n uitgesproke Christen. Waar het jou pad met die Here begin?
Peter, yes. Unashamedly a Christ follower. It started at home. I think right in the beginning we talked about that, but yes. Really, what a privilege to grow up in a Christian home. Mom and Dad loved God, instilled those values in us as kids, didn't force church onto us, didn't say you must. And I mean, we went to church twice on a Sunday, which I think I'm still trying to get over. But Christianity brought with a lot of love and a lot of grace and a lot of reason. The whole idea of, I think my father got this right when he instilled in us this whole idea of, this is who you are, now live that way, as opposed to, you must live this way. Yeah. It was a sense of identity first, and then live out according to what we've been called to.
Nou, het jy enige raad vir mense om 'n sinvolle tyd met die Here te spandeer? Want baie keer is ons lewe so gejaagd, en ons het nie daardie tyd om stil te raak, regtig om kontak te maak met die Here nie. Wat se raad kan jy vir ons gee?
I would give similar advice to people that ask me about what should I do to exercise. And I'll tell you why there's a lot of similarities. When it comes to exercise, you need to find something that you enjoy doing and something that you feel you get benefit from. If you don't mix those two, you're never going to continue this thing. If you're cycling or running or whatever. But if you can find something I really enjoy, you'll keep doing that. And it's the same with those times of quiet before God. It's the same with the kind of regular meditation or quiet times, is find something that you enjoy and get real benefit from, and you'll keep doing that. To force yourself to follow the rules that some author has written in the book to say, if you want to have a quiet time, this is how you must do it, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then 50 minutes here, and that just doesn't work. Find what works for you, what you really enjoy, where you really connect with God, and do that, because that's something that you'll continue and maintain.
So hoe lyk persoonlike stilte tyd met die Here vir Michael Mol?
Jy gaan my lag. I have a bit of an ADD thing. So for me, just to do one thing at a time, I feel like I've got to be doing one more thing.
Okay.
So I've got a setup in my home which allows me to get onto an indoor bicycle, a trainer. It has got a little sort of laptop platform. So I can get onto my bike, I can start churning out gears and really sweating, and I can sit on my laptop and I can read, I can have a quiet time, I can journal, I can do all of that. So I start my day sweating madly, in the presence of God. And for me, I finished that with a sense of, I got some exercise, I got some spiritual growth and spiritual fitness, ready for the day.
En daar sê hulle vir ons, mans kan nie multitask nie.
Ja, precies. Ja. Goeie punt.
Wie is jou gunsteling karakter in die Bybel en hoekom?
I'd have to say David, just because I love telling his stories to my kids. They're the loudest, the most passionate, emotional stories. Yeah. I think the whole idea of David being described as a man after God's own heart, I can't think of a better description for any person's. I mean, I'd love to have that label on my life. And I think from my perspective, David lived passionately. And the Bible talks about with zeal, which I think is another word for passion, but you know, he achieved great things for God with great passion. You know, standing before Goliath, kind of yelling at this giant, how dare you defy the armies of God? You know, the passion with which he did that, but in the same breath, the passion with which he sinned and he messed up, but he realized that and he immediately went to God. The whole idea of David talking to himself, and the Bible talks about David encouraged himself before God in the sense of, there's just a real sense of the man knew himself. There was unbelievable self-leadership, you know, a love for God, a love for people. The scene where his men sort of fight their way through this Philistine camp and go get water for him from Jerusalem and bring it back. And how does he respond? He doesn't drink it. He says, this is too valuable for one man to have, and he kind of pours it out as a drink offering. I mean, the guy just had it, man. So I really enjoy David as a character. And most recently, and I'll stop with this because these are getting really long, and see you're watching your watch. I'd never read it before. And in reading the story to my kids, it just came to me anew. David had just taken Goliath out, and Saul watched what happened. And you know, Saul asked 3 things about David, the same thing 3 times. Now, he's just seen this youngster take out a giant. What would you want to know? Do you know what Saul wanted to know? He said to his general Abner, he says, whose father is that? You know, whose son is that? In other words, that boy has had to have an amazing dad to be like that. And when I read that to my son, I said, I hope one day people look at your life, Josh, and say, I wonder who his father is. So, yeah, David.
Sure.
Kort answer. Kort antwoord. Answer.
Jy het die geleentheid om baie te toer en reg deur die wêreld plekke te sien, mense te ontmoet. En ek is seker jy sien ook baie seer en hartseer. Baie pyn. Wat is daar wat ons kan doen om 'n verskil te maak?
Pity, I think I touched on that earlier. I think the whole idea of anger is interesting, and you'll have to stick with me on this. Anger is often seen as a negative emotion, something we should avoid. But when I see injustice, when I see kids suffering, when I see someone dying of tuberculosis, when I know it can be treated, you know, inexpensively, it makes me angry. And that anger moves us to action. It's when we kind of see it on TV and we just flick channels and go on to watch some other soap opera and we ignore that. We don't get angry, we don't get moved. That's concerning. The whole idea of it's out there, it's not where I am. That concerns me about where we are as society. But if you ask what we can do, I would say let's go back to that whole idea of what am I passionate about? Where do my strengths and abilities lie? And where do those abilities intersect with the greatest need in my community? Because when those 2 things intersect, that's where I can make a huge difference. You know, I think John Aldridge once said, don't do what the world needs, do what makes you come alive. I like that approach, but I do think you can't ignore what the world needs. So do what makes you come alive, but let that intersect with a need, and that's where you can make the biggest difference.
Hoe voel jy oor waar jy tans op jou lewensreis is?
Unsure, in the sense of, I wonder what God's got for me for the next season.
Yeah.
And I think I've learned to live with that uncertainty in a wonderful way. It's a real sense of, if I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do that, what room is there for faith? What room is there for kind of trusting in God for guidance and leading? So right now I'm at a stage in my life's journey where I'm not sure what the next 2-3 years would hold. I'm excited as to what God's got planned, and my challenge is really to kind of keep in step with what He's doing and not run off on a tangent and do what I think I can do and kind of, you know, try and change the world when God really has, you know, has this in mind for me. So, yeah, I think for me a journey, the biggest lesson is one day at a time. I'm always amazed at people who stand up and say, God gave me a clear vision for what I'm meant to be doing, and I'm doing this, and nothing's going to impede me in that path. I'm like, oh man, wouldn't that be great to have? But in my life, God hasn't done that. It's been one day at a time. And I think, and most appropriately, because I think if God did say to me, this is what I want you to do, I'd ignore everything else and just do that one thing, because that's just the way He's wired me, and that's not going to serve anybody. So.
Jy het net nou gesê, mense het jou al gestop en vir jou gesê, jy het die wonderlikste werk op aarde. Maar ek is seker, as jy in die oggend uit die bed uitstaan, is daar nie altyd 'n glimlag op jou gesig nie. Hoe hanteer jy teleurstelling?
Dis 'n goeie vraag, Pietie. Ek dink ek hanteer dit with the reminder of the wonderful verse that says, He who started a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. And disappointment is just a work that hasn't quite come to completion. And so for me, learn from it, hurt a little bit with it, deal with it, but that's not the end of the story. That's just part of the story. There's still more to come. We talked about that song earlier. There's hope, there's more to come for this city, there's more to come for our life. So for me, disappointment is part of everyday life. We can't avoid it. But for me, it's not something that will hold me down for very long. Understand it, deal with it. God's got a hope, plan, future, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of verses we can kind of rest on and rely on. But for me, it's the whole idea of there's a work that's been started in me, and God will be faithful to complete that. This is just a stepping stone or a little gap or a valley, whatever the case is.
Abraham het in so 'n verhouding met die Here gestaan dat hy regtig vir hom gesê het, dis my vriend. Ek noem jou my vriend. Wat beteken dit vir jou om 'n vriend van God te wees?
An unbelievable, humbling honor. God has got many ways that we can kind of address Him and speak to Him as Father and as Savior and as Creator. But when you say friend, for me, that's the whole idea of Jesus also saying there's no greater love than a friend who lays down his life, or lays down his life for a friend. That idea is mind-blowing and humbling, that Almighty God would consider me a friend. I think if you ask that question, what does it mean to be a friend of God to others? I think the whole idea of, I think 1 out of 100 people will read the Bible, the other 99 will read the man. And if people can look at my life and see in some way, here's a friend of God, there's access to God through me, that to me would be, it means to be a friend of God to others. And I think that's key. So if I could in some way be an ambassador, a channel for strangers to God, not that anyone's a stranger to God, but that God might be a stranger to them would be great. That's to me being a friend to God.
Het jy enige raad vir mense wat in 'n werksomgewing dalk sukkel om Christus uit te lewe?
Dis moeilik. Ek dink ek sou sê begin maar tuis. If you're looking at living a Christ-like leadership role at work, make sure you get it right at home. Because it's all too easy to do something at work that people don't really know who you are. You can keep up a front, but the real man, the real truth, is what happens at home. And if you can get it right there, then I think bring it to work. Don't try and do it the other way around. That's a very vague answer, I realize, but I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is the authenticity and the honesty of this is who I am. And I think people respond to that. People don't respond to the untouchable, self-righteous, follow me, I'm the way. They respond to the authenticity of this is what I'm battling with and this is what I'm struggling with. Would you help me? Would you keep me accountable? Let's journey together.
Michael, het jy 'n gebed vir Suid-Afrika en ook vir elke persoon wat na hierdie program kyk?
Yeah, I'm gonna steal Paul's prayer. Paul had this amazing prayer in Ephesians, and forgive me for misquoting it, but it goes something like, I pray that you would grasp the depth and the height and the length and the breadth of God's love, and realize that love and know that love and what God has got planned for you. And for me, that'd be a prayer for every South African, is guys, just that you catch a glimpse of how much God loves you. Irrespective of who you are and what you've done, God loves you. Know that.
Michael, baie dankie vir die tyd wat jy afgestaan het om vandag saam met ons te kuier. Ek is seker die ander mense wat na hierdie episode kyk is net so gebless soos wat ek daardeur is. Mag die Here jou seën en baie sterkte met alles wat jy aanpak in die toekoms.
Pietie, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Dit was 'n voorreg. Ek wil jou uitnooi om volgende week weer in te skakel by Vriend van God en ek wil jou aanraai en uitdaag om hierdie week waar jy kom 'n impak in iemand se lewe te maak deur juis 'n vriend van God vir iemand te wees.